Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Monami and today I'm going to show you some tips and tricks that will help you to level up your paintings. Of course, I'll start with references. I'll show you tips to do the lighting, skin, hair, fabric, etc. I'll show you the entire process. I have a lot of things up my sleeve today. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So first things first, always remember to use references. Here I am doing a character which I basically had what I wanted to achieve. This is inspired from a very old painting by Loish, but I will recommend using references for this as well. There are multiple references if you just Google it or search it on Pinterest or Behance or any other sites like that. So I'm speeding up the process here a little bit while I am doing the line art basically. So as you can see, even while doing the line art, I am making sure that I am not keeping things too clean or too perfect because that adds to the character of the painting. By character I mean characteristics to the painting. It gives a certain something that makes your painting feel even more lively, right? I have certain videos on it previously made, I'll link it up. So now as you can see, I used 3 reference images on the right. So the first one, I'll use it while doing the tiles. I really like the reflections it has. The other one, I'll use it as a lighting reference. And the third one is basically the color palette I'm going to use. Unless you are doing a study, I'll recommend using more than one reference image. You won't be too fixated on one image. Instead, you can pick out elements from all the reference images that you like, and that way you won't lose your own touch in the painting. After I fill the colors, let me just show you how I use different layer modes to do the lighting. So first I use a bright yellow color and set it to overlay mode. Next I'll duplicate it and open the blending options. Once opening the blending options, you will see there are 3 channels, red, green and blue, basically the RGB channels. And you can switch on and off these 3 channels and you can see the colors and you can add a certain tint to the light. So here I switched on only the R channel or the red channel and added a little bit motion blur. Now I'll reduce the opacity of both the layers and you can see it adds the beautiful golden yellow light. So yes, once that is out of the way, I'll again select and fill the colors, the shadows and etc. So while doing the skin, you will see I'm not using a direct dark shade of the skin color. Instead I'm using a lot of purples, blues and reds. So I'll also show you why I do this and what difference it makes, right? So let's take a ball and I fill it with the skin color and I'll do the shading and the lighting with the immediate dark and light color. I'll add a harsh highlight. Okay, and now I'll take the second sphere. Here I'll use a little bluish color to do the shadow areas and red colors to add a little bit focus on some other areas like the cheeks etc. And then finally a lighter color as the highlight. And the final touch to it is that I'll use a textured brush like a chalk brush or anything and add certain textures because none of us have perfectly silky smooth skin. You can see the difference it makes, right? The other sphere, the sphere on the top is much more vibrant than the one in the bottom. So yeah, I'll apply this principle while doing the skin, face, hands, legs, etc. in this painting. You can use the red colors in areas which you want to pull attention to, like the blushy cheeks, fingertips, joints, etc. And throughout the painting, I am using a soft round brush to blend out. Okay, so once that is done, let's go on to paint the fabric. Again, let's get back to our sphere. Here also you can see I'm using a bluish color for the shadow and a little yellowish shade for the highlights. Now for the folds, right? So remember that all the fabrics fold from a certain origin point, which can be our elbows, which can be waist, etc. For the sake of sphere, I'll take the origin as the top of the sphere, and I'm selecting and with a textured brush doing the shadows and the highlights. So this is an extra step where I'm just extending the fabric a little bit outside the sphere so it looks more like a cloth, but that's just for showing here. And now I am adding a little bit motion blur on the shadow areas and the light areas. Now let's add some pattern so it looks more like a cloth. And yeah, that's it. That's how I do my fabric. So I'll apply the same thing while doing her shirt and shorts. I'll speed the video up a little bit. So time for doing the socks of the girl. So as you can see, as I was painting the socks, it really wasn't looking that nice. It did not look really like socks. Well, so again I used a reference image for this. You can see that even in the line art stage, it looks much more oriented and like a sock basically. So again I'll draw some stripes here and there and add the shadows and the highlights, following the same principle as I showed. Okay, now let's just do contact shadow areas. I prefer using a bluish shade to a blackish shade for shadows in general. Now time for drawing her hair. So initially I had a different view of what I wanted the hair to be like, but well, later on I decided to give her more of a bed head that I felt will add, more characteristic to the painting, or it will add to the mood of the painting basically. So also for the hair, I pulled up a reference image. This is again a painting of Loish. Yes, of course, as soon as you pull up a reference image, it helps you to achieve that certain thing you are looking for. Probably you have it in your head, but you can't really translate it to the illustration. So yeah, use references, guys. So again, I'm just selecting and using a purplish here, darker purple for the shaded hair parts, and I'm using a golden yellow for the areas where light is falling. So after that is done, I just use a soft brush with opacity sensitivity on. I am experimenting with the lightings basically. So now that it's done, time for doing the tiles. So again, as you can see, I am using that image I had used as a reference before. Yeah, so for tiles, I'm basically just looking at the reference and adding the lights accordingly. The brush I used here is a texture brush. Any texture brush or chalk brush would work for it, okay? And also I have 2 or 3 tiles where I use textures, real images, and reduce opacity. Now time to add some final harsh lights or harshest highlights on the skin. And with it, it's done. After you are completely satisfied with the image, use a little bit noise that makes it a little bit flatter, but at the same time a little bit more tangible, I feel. So with it, this painting is done. I hope you learned something useful today. If you liked my video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And until next time, bye.